Hey everybody, we're going to do our first animation assignment. And I just need to show you a little bit about working with the timeline and then show you the very first assignment that most animation students do, which is the bouncing ball. It also highlights the squash and stretch principle really well. Okay, so open up a new project, full HD. Okay. And we're going to switch our frame rate to 24. Double click the hand and sets the stage to full screen. Okay, so with keyframe animation, it's the closest to traditional animation that you will do with Adobe Animate. It's pretty much set up for it and essentially happens mostly here between the timeline and the stage. So what we're going to do is we're going to start by drawing a ball, and then we're going to animate it falling from the sky, hitting the ground, squashing and stretching, and then unsquashing and stretching and going back up in the air. Best way to do it is just to do it. So I'm going to get my oval tool and I'm going to change my color to red. I'm going to make a nice red rubber ball. And using my shift key to get a perfect circle, I will draw a ball up here. Get my oval, selection tool, V on the keyboard, and position it up in the sky somewhere. Doesn't really matter. Just put it up towards the top of your screen. All right, so I want to give my ball a little bit of depth. So I'm going to add a slight shadow to it. So here's a cool way of doing it. Click and drag with your selection tool and marquee, highlight just a small little portion down there. And using your color picker and go into your color well, drag your slider down and create a slightly darker shade of that color. Then let me zoom in just a touch. Command Control plus plus, so you can see better what I'm doing here. You can just use your selection tool to add just a little bit of a shadow to your ball. Now I'm going to highlight my ball a little bit, Q on the keyboard, and rotate it just a little bit. Okay, so that the shadow isn't directly below, right? So this indicates that the light sources will be coming from sort of this angle, right? And then I'm going to get my brush tool, change my color to white, and my brush size a little bit large, so I'm going to drag it down a bit. That looks good. And add a little highlight to the ball. Well, that's a little bit large. Maybe I'll shrink it down just a little bit more. Okay. Okay, just a little highlight to the ball. And zoom out. So as you can see, I got a red rubber ball with a highlight and a little bit of a shadow to it. All right, select the ball. I like to turn things into symbols. F8, red rubber ball. Click OK, and now I'm working with a ball. And so now the rest of the animation is going to pretty much happen in the keyframe, between the keyframes and the stage here. So keyframe means change. And so I can also change the layer name as well. Okay, keyframe means change. So in order to make the ball fall from the sky, I add a keyframe. And there's a shortcut for that, F6. You'll notice that I have two keyframes. This blue bar is my scrubber bar, and as you can see, between keyframe 1 and keyframe 2, there's no change. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to create that change. I select the ball, and using my down arrows, holding my shift key, shift down, nudges the ball down 10 pixels. Repeat the process. F6, shift down arrow, but I'll do it twice. Okay. F6, another keyframe, shift down, 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 down. Okay. Think about why I keep increasing the amount of nudges when I add a new keyframe. Okay. Essentially what I'm doing is I'm accelerating the ball falling down from the sky because it's moving further over the course of the same amount of time. So again, F6. So I shifted 4 last time. Shift down 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. F6. Shift down 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. F6. Shift down 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay. 11, 12, maybe. Okay, and so that's the ball, technically, maybe let's say that's the ball hitting the ground. Okay, next we're going to start our squash and stretch. Again, another keyframe, F6. Now I'm going to switch to a different tool in order to get my squash and stretch, Q on the keyboard. Okay, and you'll notice that when I squash, I can grab my corners. Okay, so I'm going to be squashing from the top. And if I simply just grab it and squash it, okay, you'll notice that it works, but it's not right. Okay, and the reason why it's not right is because the ball is squashing from both the bottom and the top, and that's not what happens. Okay, so we undo that, Control Z, and we're going to use our Alt key, Option on a Mac, and when you use that Alt key, it basically anchors the other side of the symbol so that you can just squash from one side. So Alt squash a little bit, F6, Alt squash a little bit more. What? Let me undo. Alt squash, I forgot to stretch, right? Stretch, then add the keyframe, sorry. F6, Alt squash, a little bit more, and no Alt, stretch, because I want it stretching from both sides. Okay, and then I'm going to add one more level of squash. So Alt squash a little bit more, no Alt squash or stretch. And so you can see if I scrub, and that's what moving my timeline back and forth like this is called. If I scrub, there's my ball. And a full fall from the sky, squash. All right. Once you got that, it's easy to make it go back. Right? Just like in Word or many other Microsoft applications, you can simply copy and paste an action. And that's what I would do. I would copy and paste the ball falling from the sky and squashing. And then to make it go back up in the air, I would copy this section of animation and paste it and then flip it over so that the ball goes back up. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to just add a blank frame, and that's an F5. Well, the reason why I want to add a blank frame is because I want it to sit. I want it to sit squashed just a little bit more. Okay. Anyway, so now to make the ball go back up in the air, click and drag all one smooth movement and select all the frames except for that last keyframe. Leave that one alone. Okay, I'll do it again. Click and drag. Okay, and make sure to do it that way, because if you click and let go and then try to drag, you're just going to move that first keyframe over. You don't want that. So deselect, click and drag all in one smooth movement, highlight the frames that you want. Now, just like we did when we were creating two eyeballs, we Alt drag. So hold down your Alt key, drag that section of keyframes over, let go of the mouse first, let go of the Alt key second, and then you can reverse them. So you right click and where's reverse frames? There it is, down here, reverse frames. Okay, and the ball comes down, goes up, comes down, goes up, comes down, goes up. Look at that, beautiful. And then what I might want to do is I might want to make this like a full second to bring it up to 24. So I'm short 1, 2, 3, 4 frames. So where am I going to put those in? Well, I might actually add frames in between here in the squash and the stretch, just to slow that down a little bit by pressing F5. So I'll click here and press F5. And as you can see, That slows that squash down just a tiny little bit. And I'm pressing the Enter key in order to play my timeline. That's what you might be hearing, me clicking my Enter key. Okay. All right. And then what I might do is just add like 1 frame at the beginning here to slow it down here, 1 frame at the end here, F5 to slow it down here. And so as you can see, essentially me adding frames in between is just a way of me slowing my animation down at certain points. So what I've done is I've slowed it down at frame 1, I've slowed it down at frame 10, and 12, and 15, and 14, and then again at 23. Okay, so press the Enter key, you can see. All right, Enter, Enter, Enter. There's your first animation using squash and stretch and keyframes. There you go. We'll talk a little bit more and do this multiple times in multiple ways. All right, see you in the next one.